So, like somewhere in the conversation last week, things got really exciting, and we started talking about the law of correspondence. But it's a big topic, so we didn't want to interrupt last week's session about relationships. So this week we're going to talk about the law of correspondence, which is very exciting because uh, I think once we start to fully grasp this concept, you start noticing that you actually have full control and you can change everything in your life, everything in your surroundings. So I think the difficult part here is that for people hearing it for the first time, it can take some time to digest. But then once you start seeing that, oh, actually, I've seen patterns of this, I've seen how it's affected my life, then you also start to notice that, oh, okay, this is how I use the law, this is how I change my life, this is how I change myself, and then magic starts to happen. So Lisa as well wrote a really nice article on her website about this. So if you guys want to get the full details on it, you should check this out. Lisa, do you want to also share with us how your journey started with this, and then how come this came into your life?
Yeah. Atma, namaste, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Well, my journey started when I found Prana World. Yeah, and I dived into energy, studying the energy, studying about our chakra. And at that time, I was struggling with my emotions, I was struggling to make sense of what I feel and things around me, my surroundings. So as I dive into the energy world, I found that when I did the twin heart meditation, meditation on twin heart, that gave me a lot of clarity, and my emotions and my thoughts are more calmer. So that's how I started, right? Have you heard about as above, so below? That is very familiar phrase, right? That we hear usually from some of the books that I read and all that. So in other words, it means that our outer world reflects our inner world. Yeah, that is what happened to me. Yeah. When I was having this, when I was struggling with my emotions and my thoughts and what I'm going through, I was actually looking at outer, right? So later on, when I discover to look inner, that is where I discover things can be changed. My life got better. Yeah, it's more calmer. It's mainly now I'm more at peace with myself. Yeah. It's normal. I think our predominant thoughts usually would be feeling on our conscious level. We actually create the reality that we perceive how it is. Yeah.
And
so
interesting you said about twin hearts, because you brought this up I think the last session as well about relationships, right? That you're saying that of course, relationships have up and downs. And then when you discover pranic healing and the meditation on twin hearts is like very loving meditation. So as you started doing it and your internal chemistry, I don't know what we call this, like your internal energy started changing, right? Then you notice that your family and your surrounding also started changing, right? So and that was just as simple as changing yourself first, right?
Yes, right.
So like you were saying, as within, so without, right?
Yes, right. Correct. So I was also reading, there is this article that quotes the law of correspondence. That's why that comes to our talk today. Yeah. The law of correspondence actually teaches us to acknowledge and look at issues until it is healed. So I find this very interesting because this is the journey that I have embarked into, and I'm constantly doing that, daily, every day, weekly, monthly, it never stopped since the day I started in my spiritual journey. So I find that if we develop that ability to move through a challenge, to get closer and closer to be aligned with our divine wisdom. Okay, that was my question actually. How do we know that we are actually doing what we are doing is right, what we are thinking is right, what we are feeling is right, so this questions always comes in whenever I'm faced with certain challenges or I look into myself. I have this question: how do we know that what we are doing is right? So from that article, I learned that it is actually the closer that you are being aligned with our divine wisdom, okay, then those negative or difficult situations will stop recurring in our reality.
Yeah.
And that is what I discover. This is actually what happened to me. See?
Do you have a specific example that you can share?
Yes. Many example actually. I was trying to. Yeah, I was trying to see. Well, when I look at relationship, okay, there is always things that I feel that why the other person is doing certain things that I'm not that create certain friction between both of us. Yeah. But right now I feel that if when I went inner, when I healed myself, yeah, and this friction stopped happening. It stopped to happen, Things are a little bit more, how you say, smoother. Communications are smoother. So this is where I meant when we actually heal ourselves, we heal outer, means people surround us. Actually, it is actually our reaction towards the person. Maybe the person is saying certain things that triggered us. Yeah, that is where the friction starts. Words starts coming in. Here it's like a shooting arrow. You be shooting over and there. It's like I feel that now that I have healed within myself, the shooting arrow stops.
Yeah.
I do not have the reactions to what the person says because I'm very clear of what it is, right? So that doesn't trigger any emotions in me. So I find that very, very helpful in my dealings with people, in my dealings with relationship with people, with family as well.
Yeah.
So maybe yourself, do you have any experiences that you want to share?
Yeah, actually, thank you. Yeah, so actually for me, it was a little bit started before pranic healing. I remember that I was thinking about my thoughts, right? So I was thinking about the stuff I was thinking about, and I realized that I used to think a certain way, but when I start to interact with people, I would say things or do things a bit differently, And then I would try to monitor my words and see, why did I say this or why did I say that? And at some points I wouldn't understand it, and then I would go back and reflect and think on it, right? And then I started thinking, what was the message I'm trying to convey, and what are the words I'm trying to use? So then it started to become clear that and then now it can be summarized very nicely as the law of correspondence, where people hear the words that we say because the language is a medium of communication, right? We're just trying to convey a message. But what is it that actually was within me did not come out the same way, did not come out as what I intended. So then I started thinking about my thoughts and what is it I'm trying to convey, the message I'm trying to convey. And like that, my language started getting better. My communication started getting better. And I started to notice that the things I wanted in my life, I was not getting because I couldn't say what I wanted. Inside and I think we all have this, right? we have a certain feeling, we have a certain emotion of what we want to do or how we want to do it, but we may not necessarily have the proper communication to deliver that to the people around us, you know. So
Right.
you notice that people start to blow up, and then they go like, "But that's not what I meant. That's not how I said it. It's the tone of what you said." You know, it's all these things, right?
Yes.
Because it wasn't conveyed properly. So then coming to more realistic examples to today, once I started learning about pranic healing, once I started learning about meditation on twin hearts, and then I realized that, one of the things we're doing is also this prosperity healing, pranic healing for health and things like that. And I noticed that one of the biggest cases that we have for healing, it comes from emotional problems. So people with a lot of emotional disposition or stress or dirty energy, it after many years of this, it actually manifests on their physical body. So very commonly when I see patients and I tell them, this problem is because in the book Master Cha says this is usually caused, especially skin problems. Skin problems are usually caused by emotional stress. So, I would tell the patient the same thing. I said, how are your emotions? It's hard to ask, how are your emotions, right? So I'll ask them like, how do you feel about your parents? How do you feel about your friends? About how do you feel about your coworkers, your colleagues? And they say, oh, everything good, everything good. And I said, well, if everything's good, then you can, why are you having a problem? So, but the thing is, because they themselves don't realize it, they don't realize that there is a problem. So then I get more specific. First, I think it's a reflex that people just say life is good. After a little while, I ask them like, so how was, did you meet your sister today? Or did you meet your dad or your mom? And what did you talk about? And then once they start describing the conversation, you see that they have like, oh, it was like this, or oh, it was like that, or I feel I'm obligated to do certain things. Their version of good isn't actually good. They're just making themselves believe that. So because they've suppressed so many emotions, what's within starts to come out, right? Becomes on the outside too. So you start to see all these health problems that actually started with emotional problems, and it also appears in the words. So emotional problems can appear as physical pain, but also your thoughts, right? Also your thoughts, the way you think, is also the words that you choose to use. So one time I was talking to a friend, and she was saying certain things about her life, and I was telling her, every time I know you're a happy person, you're a very lovable person, you're very nice, but every time you talk about your life, it always seems like you're the loser in the story. you know I know you're trying to describe the story very well, but the words you choose to describe the story makes you seem like the loser. And then, this is also why sometimes you cannot achieve what you want to achieve, because not that you're putting yourself down, but also because you're always putting other people first, and you always put yourself last, right? So whatever's within you, even though you don't realize it, it also comes out in your choice of words. What you say and how you say it, how you view yourself. If you had to write things down about, let's say, if you had to write down your thoughts about money, about wealth, if you have to write down your thoughts about your spouse, about your children, about your parents, what would you write, right? And then you can see where the disconnect is. And for me, I started doing that for myself. I go like, that is why. That is why we are having problems.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Yeah, because there are many of us, including myself. Yeah, when I go through some challenges, I'm not able to. In the early days, I was not able to identify what it was. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Like us asking, like when a negative emotion is triggered, sometimes we our tendency is to straight away react, right, to that emotion. Yeah, then words comes out, and words carry energy, right, behind it. So this is where I think it's very important to take time to understand why are we feeling at a certain way? How are we reacting? Is this reaction is the one that we want? You know, sometimes we react, but that is not a reaction that we want. You know, many times we come to regret
A
it
lot of
later.
times.
Yeah. So, many times actually,
Yeah.
I come to regret certain words that I say, certain actions that I do, yeah, later on. But how do we actually
Yeah.
how do we know that we can stay in a how do we stay in an emotional that is stable when there is chaos? That's the most important, right? Question.
Wow. Yeah.
Everybody would like to know. How do we stay
Yeah.
stable? How do we keep our emotions stable when there is chaos? It's actually
Yeah.
not easy, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very good point because this is it applies to everyone, right? Whatever stage you're at, whatever you're able to handle, there will always come along something where, once you reach a certain level of stability or emotional maturity, then you're ready to take on bigger roles. And in those bigger roles, something is going to come and trigger you again. And if it doesn't, you'll take even bigger roles and even bigger roles. And then at some point, it's going to trigger, something is going to trigger you. So how do you stay calm in an emotional, chaotic situation, right?
Yes, it's true.
So for me, it's like two things. One is sometimes it's short-term emotions, like just in the spur of the moment, we're talking to someone, we didn't expect it, we're surprised, or we're blindsided, it just came out of nowhere. So that's like short-term emotions. I think that one is when I'm surprised, I try to take a moment to just breathe first. I was like, just do 2 breaths at least, to do 2 deep breaths, and then I find I can control myself, right?
Right.
Some things are like long-term emotions. So, let's say like a work email or a project that you've been working on for some time. And, maybe it's been months, it's been years, and there's a lot of small cuts, right? And then, over 1,000 cuts, suddenly they say it's like the straw that broke the camel's back or something like this. Yeah. So for this one, I tell you, pranic healing is a godsend because it's drawn out over such a long period of time. There is time to process, there's time to think about it and not to fall into the spur of the moment. So as you do your meditation and you practice stillness, awareness, and you start to think about the bigger picture, you start about think about what you're trying to do, you don't get triggered so easily. You can take this on for a longer period of time and manage things a bit better, right? So, but the trick to the long-term emotion one is to continuously think about the goal you're trying to achieve. And then once you can convey that properly, you notice that there's not so many problems. But the short-term one is where, like suddenly you get surprised and you go like, oh my God, I didn't mean to say that. It just came out, right? So that one I just do like 2 breaths, just like, inhale and just think, like just take 2 breaths and then you can, have some time to think.
Exactly. I think I learned one thing last week. Okay, we have this conversation with a lama, right? He says that if every day you were to sit down, yeah, at the end of the day, if you were to run through what you do for the day, right? If 60% of it you are satisfied, you are doing good, means your speech, your emotions, and your thoughts are doing good. If 60% of it, then the other 40%, you just have to replace them. You just have to replace them, look at it. Okay, this is what I've done. I think I can do better, right? So the next time when the same situation comes in, you just replace it. You just do something that you think that is better or right. So that percentage will slowly increase, right?
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
let's say we look at it and we only have 40% of what we did is good or what we think that we did was right, then you
yeah,
just have to, change little by little on what we look at and what we keep in mind that we want to do better. Then the next time we just practice that. So when you start increasing this, then you'll notice that automatically you'll be doing things which is aligned with your virtues, which is aligned with your wisdom. Yeah. So this is where it healing takes process, but changes take process, of course. But I think if you do it step by step, little by little, it's not so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an experience thing, right? I mean, this is something you learn as you get older. It's a repeatable process that you have to iterate again and again, and that's what's called maturity, right?
Yes.
Once you learn how to handle it, you learn how to improve that percentage to almost 100, then you'll be like Buddha, you know.
Yes, we can't be perfect, but I think the more we do, the more closer we get to more percentage of good deeds, more percentage of how we handle situation positively, you know, not reacting but responding, you know, little by little. I think that if we are able to overcome our challenges in that way, that would become our wisdom, isn't it? That is what we take with ourselves. Yeah, that is our wisdom. So in turning the challenges, how we go through it, how we solve it, and all that become our wisdom. So it's actually something that we can learn.
Yeah. And actually, there's a comment on Zoom from Muller as well. So Muller also said, like, it's true at the early stages, there was less control because there was less awareness about control. And that's just something you gain through life, right? Thank you, Muller. So that's something you gain through life, right? You know, when you're younger, everything is just like hot, 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 do this, do that, do this, do that, you know, and then you don't realize about the consequences. And a few years later, you start to realize, oh, because I was thinking a certain way, because I was doing things a certain way, I start to see how I've affected my environment, and that might have come back to either bless me or bite me in the bum. You know, and then,
the older, the wiser you are.
Oh, I need a certain level of control.
Right. So there is also there is also one article that I read. You know, it says that if you notice you have there are lower frequencies that's happening in your outer out of you or in your outer world, right? You can actually apply an opposite method to it. All right, it's like if, for example, if you encounter people who criticize you, all right, most of us when we were young, okay, yours truly here too, okay, what we will do is the same. You want to give it back to them, we will also do the same. We will also follow their footsteps. We will also criticize, right? So it's in the article, it says, you know, when our energy is reflected back to us all the time, then when you are faced with a negativity or negative energy, the quickest way to dissipate that energy and heal, all right, is to react in an opposite fashion, means in an opposite action, right? So when you are criticized, you praise them. When you are hurt, you love, all right? When you are discouraged, you encourage someone. In that way, that energy comes back to you. So when you're encouraging the other person, you're actually encouraging yourself.
Yeah. You know what's magical about this? This is actually the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi.
Exactly right.
Which is what we do in Twin Hearts, right? So you know, in Twin Hearts we do a shorter version of the prayer. But if you actually saw this prayer, it's really amazing the words that has been put into it, right? So I think I just barely off the top of my head, I remember at one part that always resonated with me. It says, "Let me not ask other people to understand me. Let me seek to understand instead of being understood." You know, so you know, every time people are complaining, they're always, what they're really doing is they're asking other people to understand me. when actually, like you said, we should be doing the opposite. Try to understand them instead,
Exactly.
and reverse the roles, right? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
And where there is hurt, let me love. Where there is doubt, let me give hope. Where there is, fear, let me give faith, and things like this, right? So that prayer is really, really beautiful. And that's exactly what you said. It's sometimes philosophy, we don't realize that how we can apply it in our lives, and this is such a good way. So I think also one time I had this problem where actually just recently someone had caused a bit of interruption in my life, and I go like, oh my god, do you not have any sensitivity at all, like not even the courtesy to apologize after what you've done? I was like, how is it that you're so numb to your environment? And I started complaining and mentally criticizing this person. And then I realized, you know what? By doing this, it's not helping anyone. We just make the problem worse. So I said, let me try to understand this person. It was very difficult. I tell you, it's very difficult because it's a long-term problem, right? So I thought, okay, let's before we criticize, let's think of 5 good things about this person. This is what Master Cha said, right? Master Cha said, before you criticize someone, he said, think of 10. He said, think of 10 good things. I couldn't think of 10. I only thought of 5. It's really hard when you're upset with someone. When you're upset with someone to say, oh, but you're very pretty and you're very well dressed and you're always punctual. I'm like, I cannot think of all this right now, So, but I started thinking about it, right? And I said, okay, let's just. So this is the trick, right? If you're trying to do this too, what I found worked for me is not to. There is the automatic tendency to focus on that event that made you upset. Put that event aside and try to think of that person before the event, right? Why did you know them in the first place anyway? The reason they're in your life was because of something good, right? So I started to think about that, like, how did this person come into my life? And when I talk to them, the reason they're still in my life is because we had a good time together. So I was like, what was that good time? And I started thinking about that more and more, and I thought, actually, this person is not so bad. It was just they don't know how to control themselves because they've not done a lot of work on themselves, on inner transformation. And because we're on the spiritual path, we're talking about this every week. We're actually we talk more than every week. We talk a lot more than that. So right. Because we're doing so much inner work, we're actually trying to self-improve. Our progress is accelerated. So you can't expect someone who's never done any transformation, any self-transformation, to keep up with you on the same level. So I'm like, okay, So the one good thing here is that we're progressing very fast. That doesn't mean to like stroke your ego and say, oh, I'm so great. Like, that just means that if you're ahead, it's my responsibility to turn around, put my hand down and pull the other person up, right? Right. That shows signs of growth. So I was like, oh, if I can't do that, it means that I am just as immature as the other person. I'm no better, right?
Right.
So yeah, I was thinking, am I really the better person here? Then prove it. If you really think you're the better person, why don't you prove it?
That is so well said, Sundar. I think many of us, well, we are in the spiritual path. We actually look more inner into ourselves, right? And if when earlier on when I encounter like during the spiritual path, right? When I was learning about meditation and things like that. So my wake up call was I was looking at my life. I was looking at what I was struggling with, right? And I'm looking at why am I struggling with this? Why am I? So I was going into finding answers to things. And the more I look at it, the more I went inner.
Yeah.
So the more you look for an answer, the more you go inner to yourself. Yeah. So that was the wake up call for me actually. my curiosity of wanting to get answers to many things, yeah, from there I start going inner and inner, and I fine tune many things in my life inside me, the way, my emotions, my thoughts, my speech, yeah, I fine tune that. So automatically, I find it when we do the meditation, as just now you were explaining, yeah, um, the meditation has Saint Francis of Assisi, yeah. Um, so the more I do it, the more I find it is easier for me to actually look inwards. That is really odd because without much of how you say it, without much of trying, actually it comes automatically right now. So each time when I talk, each time when I feel an emotion, it's like ingrained automatically. I will look at it. Oh, okay, this is how I want to say it. This is not what I want to say. This is not how I want to react. So it becomes like an automatic reaction already. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually good to look inward.
Yeah. You get familiar with the process, and then you catch yourself before a problem happens, right?
Yes, correct. So
and that's the goal, right? That's the goal. If you can catch yourself before falling down, that's amazing.
Yeah, instead of regretting it later, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you are able to recognize it beforehand, then there are a lot of things we can avoid, unpleasant encounters that we can avoid. So by doing that, I think the real change it comes from inside us, really.
Yeah.
So it comes back to the law of correspondence. What is the integration? How do we get this wisdom? How do we integrate this and we practice this in our life?
Wow.
Do you have?
That's a big question.
Well, maybe you would like to share on the connection between physical self and also our higher self. That would maybe the answer could.
Yeah. So we talked about this on an emotional level, right? Whatever is inside is what you would show on the outside, especially when it comes to relationships. And then we also talked about this on the mental level. Your thoughts are whatever you think about, how you think will be the words that you use, even though you may not realize it, but those are the words that you will use in a certain situation. And then you can see what's within is also reflected on the outside. I think on a much higher level, on a much more spiritual plane, one of the things that they say as well is that as above, so below, right? So a lot of what we're doing here, if we look at the perspective of the soul, and a lot of the things that we're doing on earth is actually also some of the lessons that we've carried on from previous lives, some of the lessons that we're trying to learn in the current life. And I think a lot of people don't realize is that, when we talk about the soul, the body is just temporary, right? It lasts maybe 50, 60, 100 years, and then the body expires, the physical body. But the soul is permanent. The soul carries on its journey in different bodies, in different timelines, and it continues to learn, right? So there is previous lessons that have not completed, which it carries forward. This is the law of karma, right? So karma carries forward to the next life and the next life. Both your blessings and your and your negative karma both carry forward, right? So when the soul is trying to learn, you also understand that the higher soul is at a certain level of evolution, and it's trying to learn a certain thing. So it's actually come down and manifested on a very gross level in the physical body, trying to learn certain things in your life. So whatever is happening, on a below level, on the lower incarnated soul level, is actually a reflection of the higher soul of what it has already learned in previous lifetimes. Now, some people may have some trouble relating to this. the very simple way to understand it is that when we came here, you know certain things that you were not trained to know, right? You did not learn it in school. You did not learn it from your family. So how do you know these things? Because the soul has learned the lesson in a previous life. A very good example of this is Beethoven. Beethoven was able to play the piano at the age of 3 and compose music. That was clearly not taught in that present life that he was called Beethoven. It was learned in previous lifetimes, right? So similarly, in our lifetimes, there are certain things that we're really good at because the lesson has already been learned. You're not progressing in anything new, right? And sometimes you notice that you have certain challenges or difficulties over and over and over again, is because that particular lesson was not learned by the soul. So that's why the higher soul gave a portion of itself, which is, the higher soul is not perfect. It's very pure, but it's not perfect. So it gives the portion of itself to come down, and then it uses this body to experience life. And the problems that you're having is because you haven't learned the lesson. So once you learn it, you realize, hey, this is no longer an issue for me. Whenever it comes, I'm able to handle it. And you'll be continued to be tested again and again until the lesson is fully learned on all levels. But you start to realize that that it's not just an isolated incident, that you're going through something in your life. There's actually a much bigger picture up there, that a much bigger world, that things are happening, and it's just a reflection of what's happening up there is reflecting down here as well. So even on many levels, actually, even if you look at country levels or government or organization levels, we have this hierarchy structure where you have a prime minister or a president or a king, and then below that you have advisors or a parliament, and then below that you have the public. God does it the same way, right? That's the lower level on earth, right? If you think about the spiritual level, God has the same management structure. So God is at the top. There is the supreme God, and then there's divine Father and Mother, and then you have all the prophets and messiahs like Master Jesus, Lord Shiva, Buddha, Allah, and you have all the Allah has many different names, and you have the whole management team, and then you have all the angels, and you have the mass group of other higher evolved beings, right? It's the same structure, right? No difference. It's the same thing we do on earth as well. You have the king, the president, or the prime minister, and then you have the parliament, and then you have the public, right? So, and same in a company. You have the CEO, you have the board of directors, and then you have the employees. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting, this hierarchy. When I first started, right, I was looking at this as, we are actually on Earth. It's just like how we were watching movie, we take on certain characters, and there are certain characters that you want to play out. Yeah. So this is actually like how we are on Earth. There are certain characters that we take on, and there are certain lessons that we are to learn. Yeah. And there are certain services that we need to do. Yeah. So all these things are just like the whole. We are actually watching a live show. Yeah, in our life. And yeah. And there's another question that I was also asking myself, when it comes to intuition, when it comes to wisdom, right? I'm sure there are many of us, we do have intuition. Yeah, we encounter intuition. We encounter that sometimes when we are facing certain challenges, we have like an inner guide, yeah, that is guiding us to say, oh no, don't do this, do that, and all that. So I was asking myself, how do I recognize this intuition? Right when I was starting in my initial start, when I started my spiritual
this
path.
is a really good point. Yeah, please continue.
Yeah. So when as I go on, I feel that when the more I do the meditation, all right, the more that I am integrated. Like the lower mind is actually integrated with the higher mind. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the connection between both of these become closer and closer and closer. So right now, when I face certain situations, I can look at, the intuitions comes in even more faster. Yeah.
Yeah.
In that, I think many of us sometimes do encounter this, even myself. Yeah. In early days, I encountered that we have intuition, but sometimes the intuition comes in, it's like you get it, you don't get it. It's like the connection is stuck somewhere. On good days, you get the intuition. On certain days, maybe because the intuition do come in, it's just that our mind is too cluttered.
Yeah.
And we are not able to hear that intuition. So the reason of meditation is actually to remove all the clutters, right?
Yep. And then you get stronger connection with your intuition. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that's what I found when I was doing a lot of meditation. Yes, Sundar.
Yeah. Actually, talking about today's topic, I remember a few days ago you shared with me this video with Master Ko. I really wanted you to share this story
All right.
about this guy who was moving to a town.
Yes.
And the teacher who was in that town was asking him, how he felt. Can you tell the story? I really love this one.
All right. This is where there is this guy who wanted to move. So there was a person who's living in another part of another town. So I can't actually remember the exact one, but it's overall like this. Okay. So this person wanted to shift to where the person is, is either a teacher or someone. So he wanted to shift there. So the teacher asked him, how was your town? Yeah. And he gave his feedback. He says that, it was not, the town was a lot of selfish people. There is a lot of trouble. There is a lot of this, everything that is negative. Yeah. So the teacher told him that, okay, like that, it is going to be the same here. So you better stay where you are. All right. So the second person came and asked the teacher, he said, how is your town? I'm thinking of shifting here. How is the place here? So the teacher asked him the same question. How was your home? How was the place that you stay? So he says that, the people there are fantastic. They are loving. They are very helpful, and such. So the teacher told him, that is going to be same here. So you can shift here. Yeah, basically is that. So what the story actually meant is actually what is inside us. Yeah, that is reflecting what is outside, right? So the first story is what is inside the person is chaos. So the outer, what he sees, everything is chaos, right? And the second person is he is at peace with himself. So everybody surrounding him, he's at peace with. Yeah, he's surrounding the people and all that. So wherever he goes, that peace goes with him. Yeah, I think that is very interesting story. Yes.
I love this story because no, you did. I mean, you didn't miss. You told it really well. I really love this story because when you shared it with me, I started thinking, okay, this is a philosophical story about a man moving to a town, right? But actually, it's not so philosophical. This is what we see every day in our lives.
Exactly.
Instead of using the word town, let's say your friend, right? So sometimes when you're meeting up for lunch or for tea or for drinks, and then you say, how was, tell me about your friend or tell me about your work. And you see what they say about their boss is because that's what they're like inside. It's all the junk inside their body that's coming out. And on the reverse, when you see someone and you say, oh, how is your company and how is this, and that person says, oh, I have the best boss, I have the right team of people, they're very encouraging, very loving. I'm like, yeah, because you are that kind of person too. And we hear this every day, so when you're looking at the kind of friends you want to surround yourself with, or the kind of people you want to spend your time with, the kind of clients you want to take on, it's really important to pay attention to the words they say, because exactly what they say is what's going on inside their body, inside their system. Because let's say, and this is very common, I think, especially for like online work, designing and video editing. People talk about clients, customer service clients, right? Customer facing clients. And they say, this client when they came to me, they were complaining that the last designer or the last artist was like this, so bad. Everything's so bad, so bad, so bad. And then I said, okay, I'm not taking you as a client either, because no matter what someone does for you, you're going to complain, Exactly. So, you can also assess who you want as a client just based on what they say. They're revealing who they are, And I thought this story was amazing because it's so applicable to our life today.
Yeah, it is the same. When you go for interview, they did mention, the last thing you want to do is talk bad about your current company.
Old employer, yeah.
Yeah, your old employer. Because if you were to talk about them in a bad way, then you're gonna bring that culture into the current company, isn't it?
Yeah, that energy, right? That same energy is gonna go with it.
Yes. Yeah. So I think we are running out of time, Sundar.
Yeah. You're right.
We already extended more than 4 minutes. Okay. Is there anything else we want to share, Sundar?
No, I think we can continue this for next week. So let's end it here for today.
So before we end, I would like to thank those who have sent us such many wonderful feedback. Yeah, Sundar and myself are very, very happy that to know that we have touched a little of your life in here and there with our sharing. So please help us to continue to gain more vibration by sharing with your friends and your family. Yeah. And before we end, I think I would like to share a quote from Grandmaster. All right. Meditation on Twin Heart creates a bridge between the emotional love of the incarnated soul and the divine love of the higher soul. All right. So that would end our session today. Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much. Have a great evening and stay safe always.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.